to our January 10th council meeting. Could I have a moment of personal reflection? Thank you. Madam Clerk, National Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Mano. That was beautiful. Not as good as Sid, but beautiful.
Very true.
The acting mayor for this month is Councillor Claude McIntosh. We acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Mohawk people of Akwesasne. Roll call, please.
Mayor Glenn Grant,
Present.
Councillors Claude McIntosh,
Here, this is the concession getting a hot dog.
Dennis Carr,
Yeah.
Sid Gardner, Dean Hollingsworth, Caroline Hébert,
Présente.
Councillors Modeste Dupel,
Present, Madam Clerk.
Elaine McDonald,
Present.
Todd Bennett,
Present.
Justin Towndale,
Present.
and Eric Bergeron.
Present.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions, or amendments for this evening's meeting? Councillor Mano?
I have an addition of the notice of motion with respect to Truth and Reconciliation report that we are adding to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Anything else? Before we adopt the agenda, Madam Clerk, would you?
Yes, so procedurally, we need to approve us going into virtual meeting. So I have a resolution on the agenda. Whereas on January 5th, 2022, the Government of Ontario implemented new public health measures to take effect as a result of the response to the Omicron variant. Whereas all indoor meeting and event spaces are to be closed. Whereas Section 4.7 of the City of Cornwall's procedural bylaw states that members may not participate electronically in any council meetings. Whereas Section 4.7.2 then states that members may participate electronically during any period where an emergency has been declared to exist in all or part of the municipality under Sections 4 or 7.0.1 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Whereas, although an emergency has not been declared, the City of Cornwall wishes to abide by the restrictions imposed and is desirous of returning for virtual council meetings. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council suspend the rules and authorize the City of Cornwall to return to virtual meetings during the modified Step 2 of the roadmap to reopen. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that Council meetings are to be held virtually, commencing at its regular meeting of Council of Monday, January 10th.
Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Dupel. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Bergeron. Oh. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? We have a motion to go in committee of the whole. Councillor McIntosh, second by, I can't see most of you, Councillor Carr. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next, we have two sets of minutes that are being presented for adoption. The minutes of December 13th and the minutes of December 14th.
Motion, Councillor McDonald, second by. Somebody else, Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
in favor? Carried. Thank you. If you keep your cameras on, I think we'll be able to see who when your hands are up.
So
Madam
we have two presentations this evening. The first one is from the Eastern Ontario Agri-Food. It's an annual update and Tom Manley is joining us virtually here. So Mr. Manley, I'm going to make you co-host so that you can share your screen.
Very good, and thank you. And before I do that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this second invitation to join you today for our meeting, and especially to give you an update on what your investment has produced in the Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network over the last year. I will now share my screen. You disabled it, Madam Clerk.
Oh.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, just a little delayed.
So the purpose of my being here today is to give you the annual report as was promised the last time I was with you about a year ago, to explain what your core funding has done within our territory of service, including Cornwall, SDG, Prescott Russell, and the Ontario portion of Akwesasne. And for the year of 2021, the City of Cornwall provided $25,000 in core funding. And my objective of being here today is to report to you on that investment and to continue the same funding for this year as well. And also to continue ongoing collaboration, which has been very productive with staff at the City of Cornwall. Just to remind folks, because we haven't seen each other for a year, the network is a producer association, very much involved in three areas of activity. Firstly, in development and economic development and marketing. We like to think as being your partner in economic development, especially in the area of small-scale agri-food, including primary production and artisanal food production, which is more particular in the City of Cornwall, but there is some primary production within the City of Cornwall, definitely. And also including agritourism, working with the tourism offices and working throughout the agri-food value chain from consumer to producer. We also do sector representation, working on public policy, dealing with various levels of government, providing public relations to the media on what's going on in the agri-food sector, and talking to our members, our producers, and regulatory bodies on regulatory matters, whether it be for education or information purposes, or to bring issues to the forefront to our regulatory bodies. And thirdly, we are active in capacity development, providing training or reference and promotion of training coming from third parties, various ways of doing skills development among producers, and providing direct one-on-one support, Q's and A's, questions. People ask me regularly, how do I establish an inspected kitchen? What's a farmer's market rule and things like that? We're a go-to place for that kind of information. And among the membership and readership and interested parties in the network, providing various kinds of networking and membership and referrals of people where they can find stuff. So I understood from you last year and from your staff.
Excuse me, Tom. Excuse me, your slides aren't moving on the screen here.
It did on mine. Maybe there's a delay.
No, it's not. It's still on the first slide.
Let me think now. What would explain that?
Actually,
It's
Mr.
showing your
Manley,
outline.
yeah,
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
it's actually showing the outline. Could you click on the slides, which is on the top left corner, just above your notes?
You're at the correct slide now.
Because I'm doing a full page presentation here, and I'm surprised you're not seeing it. Oh, maybe I should be. You are sharing.
So on the left hand of
Okay,
the
I understand.
slide. Oh,
So,
okay.
what's happening there? It's sharing the PowerPoint document, but not sharing the presentation. So I'm gonna have to do it in this mode then.
Well, you're there now.
Okay, so we'll go in a straight slide presentation as opposed to the normal presentation. So to pick up where I was left off, when I was meeting with you a year ago and listening to your questions, concerns, and conversation, and also in discussing with staff and some message that were coming to us, I understood that you had 7 expectations. One was that this organization with your investments was accountable and had good governance structures. We're using your investment to leverage other monies, and I'll explain how that has happened. That in fact, the sector, the members, the operators, the food producers were engaged and active in our services and programs, that were actually delivering impact, value for money. And we were collaborating with various organizations, be it municipal or otherwise, and not just working in a silo. That were providing appropriate sector representation, being a voice for the producers to government at all levels and to regulatory bodies, and making sure that we're putting in place the proper tools and mechanisms to sustain the organization. So on the area of accountability, yes, lots of things happened. Over a year ago, our bylaws were updated. We've had, over the last year, 4 municipal board seats were reserved. I recognize Councillor Belgeron, who has joined us for meetings on a regular basis this year, there at all meetings, and very much appreciated his guidance and input. And we've also had very active presence from a councillor representing STNG and also from Prescott Russell. And more recently, we saw Chief April Adams join us from Akwesasne. The 2020 financial statements were reviewed by an external auditor and presented. Our current fiscal year ending 31st December 2021 will go to auditor later next month for approval by our membership at the AGM in March. And our budget was overseen and approved and monitored on a monthly basis by the board of directors. We have appropriate financial tracking systems in place, and I provide financial reports to the board of directors on a monthly basis of where we are. And we're also able to manage funding, both revenues and expenses on a per project basis. And we are in full compliance with all regulations, including CRA reporting and so on. Yes, your investment of $25,000 was an important source of leverage. For example, the city of Cornwall, with about 23% of the population of the region, provided about 28% of our core funding of $90,000. The balance coming from Prescott Russell of $40,000 and STNG of $25,000. And that same funding formula is going back to the 3 partner municipalities for this new year, 2022. Very important to note that this investment by the municipalities was important and critical to leverage a major provincial grant of over $94,000, covering 2 years, March 2021 going to September 2022, on a 50-50 cost sharing basis. So without your funding, that provincial money would not have been coming into this region. And also, because we're having an impact, we're getting noticed, we have lots of media attention, we're bringing in other grants and contributions from various organizations that totaled $14,000, a little bit of the CFDC out of Cornwall SDG, the CFDC out of Prescott Russell, and the federal government came in with $10,000 on one of their COVID programs. The sector is well engaged to make use of your investment. We have 156 members that are registered of various kinds, while the 4 municipalities are 4 of the first members, obviously. Many of the memberships actually paid for membership, and we had about 6 sponsors came in, corporate and agency sponsors coming in at $2,000 each. Total membership revenues and sponsorships $14,000. So your investment was met in part by the membership who are engaging in our programs and services. And we also have, in some cases, in many of our programs, participation fees. And that generated close to $20,000 in revenue this past year. People are paying attention to us. We have about close to 1,400 followers on Facebook who are watching our news looking at our information, following up on leads to buy local produce and meet vendors and producers. Our email newsletter over a year ago was about 100 readers. Now we have 946 email addresses that are receiving our newsletters. They come out on a bi-weekly basis, and we have a very, very good high open rate. 22,000 web sessions, people visiting our website in the last year. I will say largely driven by paid advertising on various online media and on Facebook. And we have discovered, I'm sure there's more out there, but we have found 27 media stories since November of 2020, therefore 14 months ago. The local media from Cornwall, Prescott, Russell, SDG, and otherwise paying attention to what your investment is doing and what we're doing. Various programs that we have offered in the area of local food marketing have had impacts on vendors. Over 67 vendors are on our online map. We were a partner with a local community partner to put together Cornwall Waterfront Farmers Market. It reached 45 vendors and a rough estimate of $250,000 worth of sales between the consumers and the vendors, many of them Cornwall-based vendors, including basic producers and value-added producers. We published a local food discovery booklet that reached 20 vendors, and we have 2,500 copies in circulation. And we put together an agritourism program called Sample the East that put together 6 visitor routes through the area. 2 of them focused on the Cornwall area, and we reached 48 venues with that program. The online local food portal, which is an e-commerce platform, has 15 active vendors and somewhere around 70 active consumers participating. We don't do our work ourselves. We cannot. We wouldn't have the resources to do it ourselves, and there's no point doing it ourselves. There's lots of great resources and partners out there in the community that we're working with. For example, the Cause Roots Community Empowerment Project was the lead partner on the Cornwall Waterfront Farmers Market, and the EOAN provided back office support in terms of administration, online services, banking, and bookkeeping, and we did the website for the market. And we did a lot of communications as well through our various means. The Sample the East program, our agritourism program, was actually put together by an external partner called Locality, which is formerly known as Tourism Prescott Russell, now a not-for-profit community agency. And we did coordinate that program with the municipal tourism officers in the 3 municipalities. We used some of the funding we received to sponsor on-farm and community events with modest amounts of a couple of $100 to $750 to be able to help those organizations put those together. A leading example was the Apple and Arts Tour through Cornwall and SDNG, where we were a financial partner. And we also directed a number of farmers and food producers to that program. We were a partner with Eco Farm Day, which is normally an Cornwall-based event, but was virtual last year again, and was going virtual again this year. CD Saturday Cornwall benefited from one of our sponsorships. Fiat Farm in Russell, Springfield Farm in Green Valley, no, in South Glengarry, can't remember. Apple Hill, and Films du Poirier in Prescott County received a sponsor from us to put on a consumer education and on-farm celebration. We were a partner with the Cornwall District Chamber of Commerce. They were a very important partner to distribute 1,000 of our booklets of the local food discovery program. We're also a voice for the agri-food producers. We've had various discussions on the subject of community shared kitchens, inspected kitchens shared by multiple producers. And in partnership with the community economic development officers, did conduct a survey of the demand for such a concept. The survey turned out to not represent a big demand, so the question was answered. Nevertheless, it was a question that was discussed jointly by the EDOs of the 2 municipalities, along with ourselves. We did engage in some advice provided to City of Cornwall staff on the subject of micro agriculture in the city and updating your zoning policy. We are a representative for the region for the 3 municipalities on the International Culinary Trail, which groups Eastern Ontario, Southwestern Quebec, Northern New York, and Northern Vermont. And in fact, on that subject, we are representing the area in a webinar talking about local food promotion and development at an international webinar. We'll expect several hundred people around the world attending, being presented in both English and in French. We also represented the region in presenting your initiative of joining forces with local municipalities at the Ontario East Municipal Conference on October 21st. And we led the preparation of a gift bag of local food that you would have seen at the in-person reception that you hosted for that conference in October. We are putting together various strategies to sustain the organization. First and foremost, we are just in the midst of a 3-year strategic planning process. We did the outreach and consultation by in-person activities, I should say video in-person activities, and a survey to define exactly who we are, what our stakeholders, the members in particular, but also our municipal partners, what people want from us and what our priorities and outcomes should be. Where should we show focus are? Nevertheless, the limited resources, we can't be everything to everyone. We understand that. Although we do get demands to be everything to everyone, but we have to make choices and understand what those priorities are. And then, of course, to measure our outcome and what those measurements of success would be. How do we know that we did a good job? And also, we're continuing to work on leveraging future provincial and federal funding. Both governments have a numerous range of granting programs, support programs, be they general economic development, community development, and COVID responses. And we are preparing, in fact, 2 applications this winter for 2 of those programs, which would be significant applications, which still require your ongoing financial support to make those things happen. We have in place a stable administrative and financial systems. We have good reporting in place. Our board of directors, I believe, are satisfied with our control measures that are in place and our reporting capacity. And we have stable staffing in place, well, myself largely, and 1 other part-time person, or 2 other part-time people actually. We find that our directors on our board of directors are very engaged. Most people are present at almost every meeting, and lots of great discussions. Not always in agreement, but always come to an understanding. Give you an idea what we're doing for the next year is we are going to complete our strat plan and implement the priorities that are coming from that plan. We're in our 2nd year of the OMAFA grant, therefore we still have to spend $47,000 this year, which requires municipal funding to match that 50-50. And as I mentioned, we have a few grants that we're looking at from federal and provincial sources that require local support to continue to develop the local food sector, both primary and secondary producers on the whole value chain. We're looking at developing further local food branding activities and further develop agritourism along with culinary tourism in partnership with tourism officers in the municipalities. We want to improve our programs. Some of our programs, as you may notice, don't have huge numbers of participation. That is normal. People are very busy. This is the first year of many of those programs. And we want to continue developing those, making them better and more attractive to the participants. We do want to engage this year, balance our activity between what we call marketing activities and representation, understanding the concerns of the sector, presenting those concerns to various levels of governments and regulatory bodies. And we're going to particularly engage what appears to be coming out of the consultations in the strat plan, a strong requirement for operator development, business development in production capacity, business management, financial management, marketing capacity, and so on. Therefore, training and professional development of the operators seems to be a strong priority, and we're going to be investing more in that matter, which is actually the element of one of those provincial grants we'll be applying for, specifically focused on operator development. That summarizes my presentation. I'll stop sharing that, and I'll welcome any questions or discussions, please.
Thank you, Tom, for a good presentation. Any questions from council? Councillor Gardner.
Okay, I'm not muted. Okay, Tom, you on page 9, you talk about shared community inspected kitchens. We did have a problem with that with Eastern Ontario Health Unit a couple of years ago, and hopefully that they're involved in inspecting the kitchens because we had some major problems. Have you dealt with Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and how have they been working with you?
Yes, thank you for the question. With Mr. Basha, the program director at the Health Unit, I've had numerous discussions. From those discussions, we better understood what were the issues and the requirements going forward. There was a pilot project of a shared kitchen in Maxville. That project just started pre-COVID, but was shut down due to COVID in last year when everything was COVID was taken very seriously, still is, but that was shut down. And the health unit's position was they did not have the resources available to pull away from the COVID response and deal with this subject matter. We understood. That's done, so that kitchen remains closed. In the meantime, though, the township of North Glengarry has reassigned that capacity to other purposes because they're going through major renovations in one of their other community centers. But with the EDOs in the community, in the municipalities, we conducted a demand survey among our members. Who really wants a community shared kitchen, or is it just talk? But it turned out the response to that request of information, if we request for demand, was very weak. Those who did respond didn't indicate a strong demand. There's a number of reasons why demand is not strong. One is people went ahead and certified their own kitchens in the meantime anyway, so their demand went away. Secondly, Ontario relaxed the rules on shared kitchens, allowing low risk production of baked goods, for example, and preserves to operate in a home condition with lesser or less strict requirements. And many home kitchens are now being inspected and certified under those new rules. Conclusion, there's not a big demand for shared kitchens. Therefore, we with municipalities have largely dropped the subject.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me the question. Great
Any
report. Good report.
Any other questions? Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah. Good evening, Tom.
Vote.
I'm just wondering what's your connection with the Cornwall Waterfront Farmers Market?
The Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network is a co-producer of that market. We are the support partner. The College Roots Community Empowerment Projects are the lead partner on the ground, face to the public, face to the vendors. We're providing back office support. Therefore, we provide the bookkeeping, the cash flow of the market of the vendor fees goes through our bank account, and we pay market expenses. We held the insurance policy. We did the website. We did the online forms for vendor registration and things like that. Whereas KCEP had the dealings with the City of Cornwall for the permit and with the health unit for registering the vendors as farmers market vendors.
Okay, do those vendors pay a fee?
Yes, they did. Depending on how active they were, they would pay from $20 to $50 per week. The most active vendors, I think, were around actually $25 per week. There was a special event for the Garlic Festival where there was one-time vendors, they paid $70. So yes, as with all farmers markets, there is a vendor.
Okay, and that market is held on a Sunday or Saturday?
It was held on a Sunday afternoon. It ran from early June to October 31st. And it is now closed for the winter time. And for your information, we entered into agreement with the City of Cornwall that we were opening the market as a temporary response to a COVID situation, because we knew very well that the Cornwall Kinsman Farmers Market has been the traditional market in the City of Cornwall on a Sunday afternoon in downtown Cornwall. And they were not present or active during the 2 COVID years of 2020 and 21. We stepped forward and filled that gap. The Kinsmen have publicly announced that they're coming back in 2022, and we're very happy to see that coming back with the farmers market. Therefore, the Cornwall Waterfront Farmers Market, with which we're involved, will pull back and leave that space to the Cornwall Kinsmen. Okay, that's where I was coming from. I saw if you were going to operate the same system, it'd be in competition with the Kinsmen. No. We have a COVID response. We filled the gap. Job was done. We're pulling back. Happy to see the Kinsmen take it up. Okay, that's good to hear. Just looking at your figures here, estimated 250,000 in sales. How do you arrive at that? We do a calculation talking to buyers who are coming and going, give an idea, basically a head count and a verbal survey of how much did you spend today, $50, $100, $200. A verbal survey of vendors, and then a multiplication factor of how many vendors there were per week times the number of weeks we were busy. And it gives you an order of magnitude. Okay, just thought maybe Revenue Canada might be interested in that figure. No. Okay. Anyway, all's good with that. You answered my question about the Kinsmen. I was slightly concerned about that, but it's good to hear you're pulling back. Good. Understood.
Any other questions? Seeing none, motion to receive the report. Councillor Gardner, second by. I can't see too many people here, so it's Councillor Carr. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you again, Tom.
My pleasure. Anytime. We'll see you next year again after you renew.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Our second presentation this evening is one of ours, enumeration presentation. And I believe Mina Mueller, who's a Human Service Manager, Ontario Works, will be presenting this evening. Mina, would you like me to play your video before you make your presentation?
Sure, that'll be great. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Go ahead, Mina, if you're,
I'm trying to do my screen share, so if I can have that access, please.
You've been made co-host. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. Can you see my screen just to make sure?
yes. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. So this short data animation captures the trends and fluctuations over the past 20 years among OECD countries in the world, highlighting in particular the exponential housing price increase in Canada. This issue was further exacerbated by the shortage of housing stock and the impact of the pandemic directly affecting the most financially vulnerable population, forcing the hidden homelessness issues to come to surface. During enumeration this year, responses from our participants were reflective of these factors. Ontario provides funding for housing and homelessness programs through 47 service managers. The ministry believes that achieving alignment throughout the province is the best path forward to establishing a comprehensive and effective approach for addressing homelessness. In January 2015, the Ontario government established an expert advisory panel on homelessness to provide advice on how to achieve the goal of ending homelessness under the province's poverty reduction strategy. The panel made a number of suggestions and recommendations, including that the province require service managers to conduct enumeration of people experiencing homelessness. As a result, service managers are required to develop an enumeration plan outlining the manner in which the enumeration will be conducted in their community. The purpose of conducting enumeration is to provide a snapshot of homelessness, including information on the scope and nature of homelessness in the community, to provide information on the demographics and service needs of people affected by homelessness, which could then be used to target community resources to where they're most needed, and also to provide information about whether programs and initiatives are having the desired impact on homelessness to drive continuous improvement in service delivery and program design. Service managers were required to conduct homelessness enumeration in 2021 using a point-in-time count method to provide a snapshot of homelessness in their communities. Subsequent to that, service managers were also mandated to develop and implement a by names list by December 31st, 2021. The ministry also introduced a few more changes to the way enumeration was conducted. And these requirements included introduction of more consistent methods used to conduct the count so that the data can be used to provide snapshot of homelessness across the province in the same manner. They also provided us with a standard ministry template to ensure, again, that all 47 service managers are providing the reporting in the same format. And also, the enumeration was supposed to be used as an opportunity to add people experiencing homelessness to the by name list, as this would help them connect the most vulnerable to the services available in the respective communities. Homelessness is defined as a situation in which an individual or a family is without a stable permanent housing. While we conducted enumeration, we reached out to individuals who were experiencing homelessness as per the definition outlined here, where they were either unsheltered, meaning they were either sleeping in public spaces or in places that were not intended for human habitation, emergency sheltered, where we surveyed those who were accessing emergency sheltered, including violence against women's shelter, hotels and motels, and the provisionally accommodated, who were living in temporary accommodations with no guarantees that they will continue to stay there. And some of the examples included living with friends and family, couch surfing, hospitals, residential treatments, etc. So enumeration method, this time, as mentioned, we were using point-in-time count method as specified by the ministry. When we say point-in-time count method, there are two levels to it. One is the household level, and the other one is a system level that we can gather the information through the point-in-time count method. And we did that by hosting a community event called a magnet event, where the community can rally around, that provides one-day snapshot of population experiencing homelessness. The point-in-time count is also more research-focused, collecting a greater number of non-identifying data. And the data collected through the point-in-time count method can be used to measure trends on an annual basis. As a service manager, we conducted our enumeration on October 27th, 2021, and we conducted it at various locations within Cornwall and SDNG. We hosted a magnet event where we selected most prominent locations where individuals who were experiencing homelessness would visit to seek services of those agencies. Some of those agencies included, as an example, Agape Center, Center 105 Breakfast Drop-In Program, House of Lazarus in the counties, Bridging Gaps, to name a few. We were able to provide them with incentive to provide food for the participants, and we also had incentives available to those who were participating in the questionnaires and surveys. Our incentives were mainly geared towards providing items that would help a homeless individual stay more comfortable, such as blankets, items that were of personal hygiene, and a bag that they can use to store their belongings. So we conducted enumeration using three methods. So we had a questionnaire that the individual, based on their consent, could answer. We also had an option of a phone-in survey this year due to COVID, and also realizing that a lot of people were experiencing anxiety-related issues, and it was not easy to talk to anyone, especially someone that they don't know, to discuss some of these very personal issues and answer some of the very personal questions. And the third method was administrative data collection. We had a dedicated staff member who was assigned to call different agencies to gather information from them if they had serviced or they came across an individual who declared themselves to be homeless on October 27th. As an example, we reached out to OPP, Cornwall Police, to ask them if they had come across an individual who identified themselves to be homeless on that day. So subsequent to conducting enumeration, service managers are also required to develop a by name list. So a by name list is a real-time list of all known people experiencing homelessness in a community. It includes a set of data points that support coordinated access and service prioritization at a household level and an understanding of homelessness inflow and outflow at a system level. So based on the research collected by the ministry, it was acknowledged that homelessness is constantly changing, and it is not possible to solve a problem which we cannot see and don't understand. Therefore, having a list of people who are experiencing homelessness was the right place to start, so we have something concrete to measure our progress alongside with. So this data included on by name list is collected over time as needed to provide the right amount of service to people experiencing homelessness at the right time. It is also updated on a regular basis to ensure that the data produced by the by name list reflects the nature of homelessness response system and the people that use it in a community. Therefore, system of building a comprehensive real-time list of people experiencing homeless came into fruition, and we also have a by name list that we have developed as a result of the enumeration efforts. So this is a quick snapshot of what the by name list has to offer, both at the household level and at the service level, the system service level. By name list allows us to have a complete picture of who is experiencing homelessness and where to find them. We will have a list of agencies who refer the homeless individuals to this system. And we will also have a list of agencies that an individual is working with in order to facilitate and coordinate the services one might look for in order to stabilize their lives. The data also allows us to house people as quickly as possible based on the local priorities. It also allows us to quantify exactly what housing resources are needed to end homelessness for every person in our community. Deduplicate the aggregate system level data and operate an effective coordinated access system with various community partners who are also working with the same client. The best approach is the collaborative approach as per the by names list concept, where we look at a client as our client, as a community client, as opposed to my client or one agency's client. All the agencies come together to provide service to the client, keeping their best interest in mind, seeing how we can all make it easier for this client to access the services that we have to offer all across our community. It also allows us to monitor progress relative to the goal of ending homelessness, facilitates advocacy, and also allows us to allocate resources based on real numbers. Making projections and setting meaningful reduction goals are easier through the by name list implementation. Having real-time visibility of our community system functioning to know what is or isn't working and where is scope to make improvements are also easily identifiable by implementing by name list. And with the assistance of Canadian Alliance to end homelessness, get to functional zero and stay there is the eventual goal of by name list. By name list serves as a centerpiece of a coordinated access system. It is an outcome-focused, people-centered system that promotes a collaborative approach. We would like to share some enumeration data that was collected on October 27th. And as a part of the enumeration, we were able to identify 77 individuals in our area who identified themselves as homeless. Out of the 75 individuals, 55 of them agreed to participate in the survey. 22 of them did not want to participate in the survey, but were okay to be identified as homeless based on the definitions we discussed earlier. Out of the 55, 39 individuals agreed to be on our by name list, and 16 of them did not want to be part of our by name list, which involved sharing their name, their family composition, and a few other detailed information which would allow us to coordinate the services for them and eventually to find a suitable housing match for them. As a part of our survey, Ministry had provided us with some data points, to be exact, about 17 data points that they wanted us to include in those questionnaire. Part of it was living situation. And as we can see in this bar graph, living with friends and family or provisionally accommodated response was the most chosen one amongst the responders who answered our questions. A lot of them were either staying with family and friends, or they were identifying to stay in homeless shelter. And by homeless shelters, they meant either living in shelters that were meant for violence against women, transitional shelter, which is in Akwesasne, as we partnered with the Akwesasne Healing Center as well to complete enumeration. And House of Lazarus has tiny homes. So people who were living in those tiny homes also identified themselves to be living in a homeless shelter. So those were our most chosen responses for the living situation. We also had individuals who were staying in treatment centers who could not leave the treatment center despite having completed the treatment. They were staying a few days extra because they were not able to find a suitable shelter option that they could afford. "31 of the responders were male, and 24 of them identified themselves as female. We had 4 individuals under the age of 25 years, and Ministry is focusing on identifying those numbers to see where youth homelessness is most prevalent in our province. And we can see on the chart that basically anywhere between 25 to 64, the range of responders, the number of people who responded in those age groups are comparable. However, 25 to 35 years category, we had the most number of responders. 18 of them were in that age group. And as we can see, the seniors, we had the least number of seniors who were identified as homeless on the day of enumeration. Sources of income: majority of our responders to the survey were either on Ontario Disability Support Program or on Ontario Work. Some of them identified as having no income, and upon asking further questions, they chose not to apply for social assistance programs. And we also noticed that there were some individuals who were holding full-time employment, but were clear to say the reason why they are in this situation is because the affordability factor was an issue, and increasing rental market was making it almost impossible for them to afford a stable place despite having a full-time employment. Some were relying on employment insurance, family and friends. Some had informal source where they were getting money if they were selling something, more or less on a casual basis. But majority of our responders were either on Ontario Disability, Ontario Works, had no income, and some had full-time employment. Reason for homelessness, as mentioned earlier, a lot of these factors were pointing towards the responders not having enough income. That was the topmost chosen response by the individuals that we surveyed on the day of enumeration, closely followed by mental health issues, substance abuse issues, conflict with partners, landlord-tenant conflicts, and unsafe housing condition. But we can see how not enough income is leading, is a lead reason as compared to other reasons by a huge margin here. The by names list, 39 of our individuals agreed to be on our by name list, out of which 15 of them were identified as chronically homeless. Chronically homeless individuals are those who have been without a stable housing for 180 days cumulative in the prior year. Actively homeless were 24, who identified to be homeless on that specific day. We had 3 individuals who identified themselves to be in the youth category, and they were actively homeless. To keep our efforts with addressing homelessness in the area, we have a few next steps determined under the by names list. So we have created and implemented a by name list in our area. In the next several months, we will be working collaboratively with our community partners on further developing this by name list. This will allow us to effectively refer individuals to appropriate resources and match housing solutions. From a system level, it will allow us to track the state of homelessness in the community, which will help us work harder towards addressing some of those issues. On an individual level for the client, this list will form as the basis for case conferencing, where all the providers can meet to coordinate and drive forward with housing solutions for people. We already have a consent form, which will be a part of a referral process when we send out this to all the community agencies, where they will be able to seek the consent of the client prior to putting them on the by names list. So we all have the consent of the client to do a case conferencing and come up with the best solution that we could propose to the client. So we leveraged existing partnership during enumeration process. So we were able to advise our community partners of this initiative, of what we're hoping to do this year with the by name list ahead of time. So they were able to also give their input on how this could work for their respective agencies as well. So in addition to the valuable partnership for conducting enumeration, this approach also allowed us to engage the stakeholders to facilitate a coordinated access to services for the clients in our community. We are committed to keep our community partners informed and engaged on the development and subsequent implementation of this initiative in the coming months. As a starting point, we're working with Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness to join us on various engagement sessions with the community agencies, where they will be there to present. They will be able to sort of coach us all in the community and the partners on how we can move forward together, share some of the challenges that other municipalities comparable to our size and demography had to go through, what challenges they had to deal with on the way, and how they were able to make this work for their communities. So we have a coach through their organization that we're looking forward to bring and introduce to our community members so we can all work on this collectively. That's all I have to present today, and I will welcome any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina, for a very thorough and I'd say timely report based on the weather that we're seeing today. Are there any questions? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to congratulate you, Mina, for putting together a really comprehensive report, and one that seems to present the information in a new way. It seems to present fresh insights. And I guess that's no accident, because it seems to me what's new here, even though I'm sure every person who's ever visited an agency for any kind of help has had their name listed. But what's new is this particular composite list of people from any agency who has experienced homelessness. So really, this is a new list. So this is a new way to look at people. And seems to me, given the fact that you have many community agencies participating, you're breaking down the silos, as you know, that's just to get in the door. Because it seems to me a lot of people who go for help to a certain agency, probably even themselves might not be aware of the total complexity and all the different facets of their problem. But given access to this group conferencing for their situation, I think that the help that they will get surely should be much more comprehensive than anything they've been able to access so far. So I'm curious about the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Is that a charity or an NGO, or is it, how would you characterize it?
So thank you for that question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, I would like to think they are a nonprofit. I'm not 100% sure though. They are an agency that was put in place by the ministry for several service managers who do not have a by name list at this time. As we all understand that this is a huge task to engage the entire community, have a plan, how to move forward, they realized that there is a need for a coach, an expert in that area, who can guide people, who can guide the agencies and the departments leading this initiative in each community properly. So everyone had a choice whether or not we wanted to take the help that was being offered. And we reached out, and it was the best thing we could do, because there was so much to learn. There was so much help that they offered us, and that is why I would confidently say that we are where we are because of the support that we received, and the check-in points, which also helped us understand, are we moving forward in the right direction for the size of our community, for the kind of homelessness we have, and the type of services that are offered in our community. So to answer your question, I believe they are a nonprofit, but I can definitely check into that. And if they aren't, I will be able to provide an update to the council.
Okay, thank you. Because I did a quick check of their website, and the first thing I saw was a call for donations, which is rather compatible, I guess, with an NGO. Obviously, they're looking for popular support. And so it strikes me that a great advantage of the setup you're outlining here is that no matter where a person enters any one of the main systems operated by our various community agencies, when their name is released at this table, the focus is going to be on housing first, not other things, like whatever other problems they might have. They might have come in for, you know, an illness or something, but they're the focus is going to be homelessness. Okay, and then one other quick question, if I can remember what it is. Maybe go ahead, and if I get a chance, I'll come back to it if I can.
Sure. So to answer your question, it was also noted that sometimes individuals who are placed in a housing situation or in a stable housing may not be able to maintain it at all times. And some of the underlying reasons could be mental health issues or substance abuse issues or other previous abuse issues that might prevent them from maintaining that stable housing they have. So this platform and this list also captures some of that information. So if there are underlying reasons, then we are able to put them in contact with different community agencies to address those concerns before we look at matching them with a stable housing solution. So in other words, we're eliminating the issues or addressing them. And then when the person's ready, we're able to direct them to a housing solution.
Okay, and then I did remember the other question I wanted to ask. It has to do with the Mayor's Task Force on Housing. I think there's at least one point in the report here where you reference them. And I was looking at the reasons for homelessness, and of course, income limitation is the first one. But I didn't get a sense looking at these that people had difficulty finding a place. Like it isn't directed toward basically a search where you just can't find a place to rent. The fact is you haven't got the rent money or there's some other difficulty.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so Ministry provides us with 17 data sets or data points to select some of those questions. So their main focus is to understand the affordability of the demographics and to understand if that's what the main driver is. So some of the details around in the area, did you have issues finding a house, wasn't a part of the questionnaire.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess I have one if nobody else has.
There are several hands up.
Oh, I can't see them.
Mayor
Sorry.
Grant.
Okay,
Why not?
Councilor Hebert, did you have a question?
Yeah, sure. And you might want to just change your view so you can see all of us. Like there's an option at the top right corner, but sure, I'll be happy to speak and make some comments. But thank you so much for your presentation, Nina. I know you've been working really hard on this with your team for several months, and it's nice to see the fruits of your labor. And great to have this data on homelessness because it's not something that we have, and now that enumeration is going to be happening regularly, it's great to have it going forward, and then from the last enumeration to really track our progress. And the by name list is really the success story here. Because like it's been mentioned by you and Councillor McDonald, you know, homelessness is complex, and it's not, you're not homeless because of one independent reason. There's usually a dozen reasons that lead you to that situation. And like you mentioned, you need to be stable in your life before you can really proceed with stable housing. So you may need to address a mental illness first, or you may need to address, like you said, a domestic violence situation, whatever it might be. And this by name list is really going to provide those all-encompassing community supports for individuals who have fallen through the cracks far too many times. And it's understandable that some of those individuals decided to not be added to the list or not participate, because these, of course, are folks who have been likely failed by the system or forgotten by the system. So it's hard for them to trust the system, which is what this is. It's the system, right? So it's unfortunate that they're in this position where they're refusing help, but it's the way that unfortunately they've lived the reality of the system, and so hopefully they can see the success in others, and we could likely support them in the future. And because I know the by name list is going to grow, it's not going to be forgotten, right? So hopefully at some point we can build some trust there and get people on their feet and ensure that life stabilization, which I know is a key word from the province in social services these days. Hopefully that is the focus. And income was mentioned as the biggest reason for homelessness, but income is so complex as well on its own, right? It doesn't just mean you don't have a job. It could mean you don't have a job because of those 12 reasons. Again, it could be childcare, it could be a mental illness, whatever it might be. And so income on its own just seems so simple, but and just getting a job isn't that easy for so many people. You need to be set up for success rather than failure, and forced into work when you're not quite ready. And anyways, so I'm very happy with how the by name list is going to work and the life stabilization prioritization that's happening, and grateful for the work that you are doing, Mina, and will continue to do, and looking forward to continue working with you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. And our team really worked hard in engaging the community partners. And I was very happy to see the reciprocation from the community on wanting to come together to create something like this and work on it. So our work has only started. It's only going to grow as the weeks and months pass. So thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Muller, on page 39, when I was reading your report, and thank you very much for a really comprehensive report, I noticed that you mentioned Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry, but I did not see Akwesasne on there. And I'm wondering, because they tried to be a partner, I believe, with the city to open up the general hospital to at least taking some of the homeless people in. Is that still ongoing, or is that a dead issue?
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Akwesasne service manager designated area. So therefore, we did not have the mandate or the rights, if you will, to do the enumeration in Akwesasne. However, we partnered with the Akwesasne Healing Center because we knew that they were working with individuals who were experiencing homelessness, supporting them. So we made contact with them, and they were one of our partners in conducting enumeration. And we are in touch with them regarding individuals who were identified through them on the by name list. As far as operationally, whether they are operational yet or not, I'm not 100% sure on the developments in that front. Regardless of their operational status, we continue to engage them because they have a homeless shelter in Akwesasne, and sometimes they have advised us that if there is an individual here who is homeless who could seek the services on the island, then they have that flexibility as well. So we are leveraging that partnership to the fullest extent that we could at this time.
I guess my point more than anything here is that the general hospital building is huge and it has all kinds of rooms in there. And how can we engage them to accommodate some of the homeless people that could be accommodated there? Thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Mr.
Any
Mayor?
other questions now that I can see everybody? Councillor McIntosh, then Councillor Towndale. Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, sure. A couple of things stood out, jumped off the page. On page 44, the age and gender. I was surprised to see that under 25 is a very low percentage. And I was thinking before I read this that it would be at least in the middle of the pack. We think of, kids leaving home and living on their own and so forth. Could there be more under 25 than what's on this page?
Thank you for your question. So because this method only encompasses doing the survey for that one day, so the data we captured is specific to October 27th. Having said that, it is possible that there might be youth more than the numbers presented in the data that might be homeless. However, because of the method that was given to us by the ministry, that is the data that was collected on that specific day. And as a measure to engage youth wellness agencies, we partnered with Youth Wellness Hub, who then actually promoted the event to their community partners and their clients to advise them that this is happening. And if there is anyone who meets this criteria, they can, again, either call them or visit the Youth Wellness Hub or one of their partners, including the hospital, Children's Aid, or even our office. And based on their promotion, this is the response that they received that day.
So somebody, a 16-year-old who decides he's going to leave home, or he or she, and becomes a CAS client, they wouldn't be regarded as homeless then if they're living in a foster home.
If they are being helped through another agency such as CAS and they're being placed, then no, they won't be considered as homeless.
Okay. The other thing that I took interest in was something Councillor Hebert referred to, the chart reasons for homelessness and not enough income, 29. And I look over at mental health and substance abuse, which is drug addiction. And if you combine those, it's 26. And I was thinking that those two issues could also go back, could be a lack of income too, because especially if you're into drug addiction, if you're addicted to drugs, a lot of your income's going to another source rather than take care of your needs. That could be a factor too, right?
Absolutely.
What I'm saying is that you really got to cure the drug problem before you can go to the housing problem. And I don't know if many people saw it, but CBC had a story the other night from Timmins, where two emergency room doctors saw it, where they've gone to the homeless people and dealing with homelessness in Timmins. And unfortunately, one person they interviewed died 2 months after the story was done. But it involves the hospital. And guess what? They see them because a lot of these people with substance abuse ends up in the emergency department. So have we ever, is that something that could be looked at with the hospital, or are they just overwhelmed right now with everything else?
So thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. We partnered with them. We partnered with withdrawal management and the mental health crisis team working at the hospital and their in-house special counselor to gather this information. So they were a part of it as well. And they are going to be one of the referral agencies on this by name list. Again, to your point, to bring them all together because all of these components are interrelated. And when someone says they don't have enough income, as you mentioned, it could be all of these combination of all these factors contributing to it, which could then be even impacted further by increasing rents everywhere, where the rental market is like on fire, where it is difficult for someone making minimum wages to afford a stable place to live.
No question about it. One other question. We seem to be talking about individuals here. Mm-hmm. Are there families? I'm thinking of a single mom with 2 or 3 kids, has no place to go and end up in a motel. Do we have much of that?
We did not have many families when we surveyed on the day of enumeration. Majority of them, almost 95% of them, were people who are single.
Okay.
Or a couple.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Towndale?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. It's nice to see some numbers here. We've talked about homelessness in the city in the past, but it's been somewhat of a guessing game because we didn't really have hard statistics. We knew it existed, but it was very hidden from us. My question is in regards to, and I think I might know the answer to this, but for example, it's supposed to drop to as low as -35 tonight, for example. And there's a number of people who have indicated they don't have anywhere to go. So would they report to the hospital to find accommodation, or what would they do? Where could they go tonight, for example?
Thank you for your question. And yes, so they could go to the hospital. And if there is police or law enforcement or mental health agencies can refer them to our crisis bed program. So that is something that is available to them, and that is covered under the emergency shelter solutions through the city of Cornwall.
Thank you for that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up. So, I mean, we can talk about total numbers versus the total population in the area, but if you could provide some comments, I know what I'm going to ask is a bit difficult, but like, should we be looking at a permanent shelter solution in the very near future? Something that the city runs that's open 24/7 to allow for people to stay.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this is a larger discussion, which probably a senior level and probably the council level decision. I would say that the intent of by name list is to more provide the stable solution for an individual to find a housing solution. And there is two theories around shelters. One is that it's a temporary Band-Aid solution where the person is staying there, but they're really not out of that situation. So for a city like Cornwall, where we have more of hidden homelessness than the visible homelessness like bigger cities, I would think if we have more resources put towards increasing the housing stock, or perhaps bringing more rental supplement type of assistance to residents, that might go a long way, is what I think.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I would agree with you that shelters are a temporary solution. It's just I am worried about people potentially falling through the cracks in the interim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Carr, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did, sir. And that was a good lead into the question I was going to ask. When we talk about housing and the need for housing, there's people that need housing badly. Do you have any observations in the work that you do that talks about the quality of the housing that's left in Cornwall that's unoccupied presently? Understand my question?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you for your question. I will probably have to look into your question to get back to you, as I will have to consult the housing services manager, who would probably have more in-depth information related to the housing stock quality that you're asking.
But in the work that you've been doing, it wasn't a case of, well, we've looked at the housing that's available, and a lot of it is or some of it is in a standard that wouldn't be suitable for someone to go and live there and help solve the problem we have with homelessness.
So as a part of this initiative, when we look at housing solutions, we will only be considering those that meets the standard of a housing, a stable housing solution, and that is who we would be partnering with.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Excuse me, I think Melissa wants to get involved.
I'm not surprised that she wants to get involved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, perhaps to assist Mina, we do recognize that there are varying states of the quality of housing across the geographic region that our department serves. Certainly, that is something that we are looking to address in the future. with different programs that might be available, or to increase the housing stock ourselves through future builds. So I think there is a recognized varying state of the quality of housing stock. Certainly for the purposes of this report, though, it is not something specifically that was asked in those data sets from the ministry.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? If not, I just have one, Mina, and I passed this by you earlier, and just to talk about comparative data from other municipalities our size. Do we have that available to us, and to look at best practices?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the second provincially coordinated enumeration effort, and this year they have given us more specific instructions on reporting and on how to conduct the enumeration. So I do anticipate there will be a compilation of data from all 47 municipalities. However, whether the ministry will be sharing that aggregate data or not, I don't have the information from the ministry yet on it. Alternatively, I do know how we can obtain those results because this will become a public data, which will get uploaded into every municipality's website who conduct enumeration. So we can select few municipalities that we would like to compare our data against, and pull that data that way as well. I do not think the comparative data would be available at this time, though, but probably we will receive some sort of a ministry report to say when it will be available, if they're going to make it available to us in the future, and probably in the next few months, all the different municipalities will be publishing their own collection of data through enumeration on their websites.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the presentation. And similar to our Affordable Housing Task Force, we look at homelessness as very critical in affordable housing as well as affordable housing. And with Akwesasne, we're working in partnership with them as well. So hopefully we will come together and put together recommendations that will be sustainable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive the report. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mina.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
We have no delegations this evening, so we have one consent report, Tender 21 T34, Supply and Emptying of Refuse Waste Containers. The recommendation is this tender be awarded to GFL Environmental Incorporated from Navan for a 2-year period commencing March 1st, 2022, with an option for an additional 1-year extension at the total bid price of $421,001.25.
Motion. Councillor Gardner, Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Next.
Resolutions, cancellation of council meeting of Monday, October 24th. Whereas the next municipal election is scheduled for Monday, October 24th, 2022. Whereas the city's procedural bylaw regulates the dates that the council shall hold its regular meetings. And whereas the bylaw sets the regular council meetings to be held on the second and fourth Mondays of each month with exceptions. Whereas there is a regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, October 24th, 2022, the same day as municipal election day. Now therefore be it resolved that the regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, October 24th be and is hereby cancelled as to not conflict with the municipal election day.
Motion. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Hollingsworth. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
We have the unfinished business listing, and that the recommendation is that council receive this listing for January 10th.
Motion. Councillor McDonald, Councillor DePel, all in favor? Opposed, carried.
Communication items, the new comprehensive zoning bylaw and map for City of Cornwall. With an action recommended that council approve the new comprehensive zoning bylaw and that the comprehensive zoning bylaw 751, 1969 as amended, dated July 28, 1969, be repealed and replaced with the new zoning bylaw.
Motion, Councillor Carr, Councillor McDonald. Just so we can interject, Councillor or Mark would like to speak. Mark Boileau would like to speak on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I just wanted to draw attention to thanks to the consulting firm and of course also to our staff who have worked for over 2 years now with different residents, different organizations, planning advisory committee, and the technical committee that has been helping out. But I do want to just mention the names of a couple of individuals, Nadia DeSanti and Anita Sott, who are the major, the principal consultants who have helped us with WSP. And a lot of work has been done by our planning department, led by Mary Joy Smith, and with the assistance of planners Alex Gattier and Lindsay Parisian, and Ellie Daniels, of course, who you're familiar with as well. A lot of work, not the easiest of work with COVID and trying to engage the community in something as important as the zoning bylaw. So I just want to thank the people who have been very involved. As I said, council and PAC and a whole lot of people. 2,000 letters went out to properties that were affected by change. And that was a lot of back and forth between our planning staff and residents and business owners. So again, just want to say thank you to all those who have worked hard on this.
Thank you, Mark. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Our next report is the enumeration 2021 with a recommendation that council receive this report.
Motion. Councillor DePel and Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Bylaws 2022-001 to 006 inclusive, listed on the agenda, are being presented to council for adoption.
Motion. Councillor Eber, Councillor Carr, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Now we are at the reports from standing advisory, special and ad hoc committees, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to give a report from the arts sector. I just want to say that the continued generosity of the citizens of Cornwall show the deep commitment people have to our future arts center. The total collected so far has now grown from $1 million to $1,069,000.
Good.
Very grateful to all the generous people who continue to contribute.
Success.
Yeah.
Any other? Could I have a motion to approve the unfinished business listing? Or no, this reports a committee, sorry. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next is a senior friendly community committee terms of reference with a recommendation that council approve the revised terms of reference.
Councillor Gardner, second by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
We have one new notice of motion that was added to the agenda. Whereas the calls to action that were issued from the Truth and Reconciliation Report are the blueprint for progress toward reconciliation, the process whereby everyone is invited to repair the damaged relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Whereas council responded positively to the calls of action, particular Article 57, which is addressed to public servants. Whereas administration contacted First Peoples Group, a firm that provides municipalities with such a service, and developed a 3-stage process whereby council, administration, and eventually the whole community could participate in an interactive activity or series of activities to satisfy the parameters of Article 57. Whereas the plan was sidelined by COVID-19 with the inevitable prohibitions against large in-person gatherings and the inadequacy of virtual substitution to effect an interpersonal objective. Whereas due to the unpredictability of COVID timeline and the unconscionable delay it has occasioned to date, it seems prudent that administration proceed with the development of an alternative and possibly virtual program as soon as one can be arranged. Whereas it must be noted that council has a very positive relationship with its close neighbors in Akwesasne, and our citizenry enjoys many points of contact both in the city and in Akwesasne. Whereas the process of reconciliation and healing is not one-off exercise, but a lifelong journey for all Canadians, and we have shown ourselves eager to participate in occasions and activities that cultivate the relationship of networking and support, of which the activity suggested in Article 57 is only one. However, it is one prescribed by the Commission on Truth and Reconciliation, and it is incumbent upon us to achieve it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council, in the very near future, end the COVID-imposed delay and undertake such a modification of the in-person program as can be developed by the First Peoples Group, one that is compatible with the limitations imposed by COVID restrictions, but which fulfills our obligation to acquire the education and skills-based training described in Article 57, and that administration make the necessary arrangements expeditiously. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the achievement of the Article 57 directive remain on the unfinished business listing until such time as we have accomplished the activity so designed. This notice of motion was moved by Councillors Elaine McDonald and Maurice Pell and will appear on the next council agenda as resolution for debate and or adoption.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next.
Next is the confirming bylaw. We are looking for a motion to adopt this bylaw.
Motion. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Towndale, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Carr, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your participation in this evening's meeting.